Welcome to Smart Remarks, where being civil doesn't mean you don't still disagree. It just means you're not going to invoke firearms as part of the discussion. So welcome back to Smart Remarks. It's been a couple weeks. We've certainly missed a lot, especially the shootings in Tucson and the ongoing reaction to them. There's a lot of people in this country, and I'm one of them, who think that the violent political rhetoric and the culture of intimidation that's created may have played a role in the shootings. But of course, there's other people who are outraged by the mayor's suggestion. Come on, just because we talk about reloading and hunting liberals doesn't mean we're actually going to do it. Of course, the entire purpose of the rhetoric in the first place is to send the message that if you push us too far, who knows? But a lot of Americans are getting tired of this sort of talk from both sides of the aisle, and even Congress itself is saying it's time for a new era of civility. Mickey Kaus had an interesting take on this in a recent issue of Newsweek, saying that while the perception is that this is going to help the Democrats, it might actually help the Republicans more, because the Republicans now have the House of Representatives, and it's time for them to govern. And, quote, they need the middle. They need swing congressmen to vote for their bills, and they need supportive poll numbers to encourage those congressmen to do so. Now, that's actually a pretty good call. Governing is different from campaigning and trying to force your way back into power, but at the same time, I don't expect that if we are in a new era of civility, it's going to affect the real firebrands on the right, the Limbaughs, the Becks, the broadcasters who depend on incivility for their income. But what about the politicians themselves, and specifically, what about our old friend Sarah Palin? I'm on record on this program as saying that I think Palin's going to be the 2012 GOP nominee. I still think she's probably got an inside track, and I think she wants it desperately. But fairly or unfairly, Palin has been associated in the public mind with the tragedy in Tucson. Now, let me say, her rhetoric did not cause anything, but it is emblematic of the angry passions that have characterized the Obama era. And in fact, I suspect that when historians write about this era later on, they will cite her gun sight map as an example of just how hot things got. Conservatives are all upset about this blood libel, and there's a good reason for that, too. Not only do they feel they're being targeted unfairly, but they realize that this rhetoric has been effective. Hatred works. But now, once you get back in power, it can't be all hate all the time, because that alienates the people that you may need as allies. So the question is, does someone like Palin have an off switch? Is she capable of a candidacy that's not all hate all the time? Her speech in response to the Tucson shooting suggested no. And what a contrast it was with Obama's speech later on in the evening. As presidents must, Obama demonstrated a willingness to engage everyone, including his critics. Has Palin ever demonstrated a willingness to do that? Is she capable of that? Sarah Palin didn't cause anything, but she is a perfect representation of the politics of grievance. If we as a country aspire to move beyond that, we may be past the era of Sarah.
Especially within hours of a tragedy unfolding. Journalists and pundits should not manufacture a blood libel that serves only to incite the very hatred and violence that they purport to condemn. That is reprehensible.
And if, as has been discussed in recent days, their death helps usher in more civility in our public discourse, let us remember it is not because a simple lack of civility caused this tragedy. It did not. But rather because only a more civil and honest public discourse can help us face up to the challenges of our nation in a way that would make them proud.